when you're talking to ERP salespeople or companies that sell these products, the word integration is more of a euphemism.
Yep.
People, I mean, there's no, you described 3 or 4 different scenarios, but the fact is no two integration is alike. And when anyone says it's going to be easy because of APIs, they are totally exaggerating.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The WMS systems come in various shapes and sizes. While it may not be appropriate for every business model, getting a WMS pre-integrated still matters. WMS integration is extremely hard, especially for the high volume businesses. It might also be substantially expensive for mid-market companies that might not have as much IT budget. Also, does international localization matter for WMS systems the way it would for ERP systems? So where does Infor WMS differ from other solutions in the market? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Infor WMS capabilities. We covered many grounds, including their unique strengths and how they compare with other Infor products. Finally, we covered how it compares with other supply chain solutions out there. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. And for today, we have another solution from Infor WMS. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I'm going to move to Andy for his intro.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for manufacturers all my life. I worked with companies all over North America. I've done a lot of traveling, of course, but I've also written a book on how to evaluate and how to uncover the truth about ERP systems. And I actually have a webinar coming up on August 9th if anyone's interested. So thank you very much, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Andy. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. We typically try to cover them during the show. If we run out of time, we'll make sure you receive your answers. On that note, Andy, I'm going to start with the quick briefing. I don't know if you're going to have any sort of background context with Infor WMS. Obviously, you have spent a lot of time in the Infor ecosystem, I guess, so you're probably going to have some insights.
But, not as much as others, but yeah, I should be able to provide some kind of feedback.
Yeah, so I will provide brief in terms of what we have done so far overall, when we have reviewed different solutions. Obviously, our goal is going to be to compare this with the other Infor solutions, but also sort of do the recap on the Infor's strategy. Then we are going to tie back with the WMS series and the TMS series that we have been doing this year, I guess. And this is part of that. So when we did Infor corporate strategy, Andy, I don't know whether you recall this or not, I guess maybe a year or 2 years back now.
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we have been doing these reviews. And obviously, Infor strategy overall from ERP perspective, it's very micro-industry centric, and we have reviewed many different systems, I believe. From the ERP perspective, I guess most of them, LN, M3, CSI Sightline, CST, Visual,
They've got so many systems that we could probably never have enough weeks to go through them all. I think Infor owns like 200 different systems at one level or another.
Yeah, and I need to block, I guess, a year just for Infor.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Right. But Infor WMS is a very interesting solution as well. And the ERP systems that we mentioned, not every ERP system from Infor is positioned for distribution retail centric verticals and retail distribution centric verticals. That's where your WMS TMS solutions are going to be handy. The solutions that we have reviewed so far, from the perspective of WMS, TMS, supply chain, they were all positioned for slightly more distribution-centric verticals. Now, the challenge with Infor is Infor has another solution called Infor Nexus, and that is all part of that SNOP portfolio, SNOP, and I probably should not use the word SNOP because that could come across as more of the sort of the SNOP insights and data analytics sort of platform. But you have the operational aspect of the platform, and then you have the insight aspect of the platform, and then you also have that supply chain network. That is probably the biggest piece of any supply chain platform, as well as the supply chain control tower. So overall, from the layers perspective, when we look at WMS, different WMS TMS solutions, so number one factor that you're going to get is overall from the WMS TMS perspective, the integration always is going to be extremely busy, unless you are doing
What do you
slightly
mean by busy, Sam?
busy means you need to exchange a lot of information.
A lot of
It's
stuff,
not
a
going
lot
to
of
be
noise, right?
so there are a couple of ways to integrate, right? So there are easy integration. So let's say if you are doing just one-way street, simply pulling data, just to do some sort of insight reporting, BI, whatever, easy peasy, nobody cares. You can do whatever you want as long as you are not literally crashing the server. If you are doing that, then there may be a problem. But for the most part, one-way street is not as much a problem. Then you have the second type of integration, which are also not very difficult and which are probably the most common integration that most people are going to see in the ERP community. And that are going to be slightly more either file centric integration or with that mindset, which is going to be okay, you sort of accumulate data and then push it over each hour, something like that. So that is another way of integrating. For the most part, if you look at the WMS ERP integration in the market, that's how most companies would do it. Sometimes there are going to be strategic reasons why they do that because the volume of your WMS is going to be so high that if you are going to make real time connection, it can never work with ERP, to be completely honest. Okay, so that's why some of the ERP systems, and I don't know whether you recall this or not, Andy, when we reviewed SAP had both modes. One was embedded and one was siloed, and both
Yeah.
could play the role in the architecture depending upon, how again busy, and I'm going to use busy term a lot.
No, I knew what you meant, but I thought to myself, you know what? I bet you the audience is not going to know what you mean by that.
You are right. You are right. And by the way, I mean, when I say busy, it could be busy, from the WMS perspective, it could be busy from the ERP perspective, but also the busyness matters for the integration as well. So all three factor could play a role in terms of which WMS architecture is going to work for you. So overall, from the Infor perspective, we are probably going to do a review of Infor Nexus. So here we are not going to talk about the supply chain control tower, supply chain platform. This is primarily WMS, and obviously with most WMS, you are going to have some sort of TMS capabilities, as part of that. Honestly speaking, I mean, I don't know how Infor likes to split this, to be completely honest. So they are always going to have overlap, okay? And we are going to talk about a little bit of overlap, from the ERP to WMS, WMS to TMS, TMS to your supply chain platform, which functionality you are going to be using when, even though all products are going to be from Infor. Okay, and they have some of the pre-baked integration. Sure, if you can work with them, then great. And sometimes, I mean, you are going to have use cases where the pre-baked integrations might not be sufficient. So again, depending upon your data, depending upon your architecture, things could vary in general. Now, the other layers that we typically touch on as part of this series, WMS TMS perspective, is Infor probably does not have OMS compared to some of the other
Which Sam? I'm sorry, I didn't catch
uh,
your acronym.
OMS, order management system.
OMS.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in their architecture, I guess what they are going to do is they are probably going to treat Probably ERP as their OMS, I would say. Some
What
companies
does
are going
OMS mean?
order management system.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and I don't know how much Infor WMS is really positioned for slightly more retail centric verticals, to be completely honest. For the most part, Infor WMS is going to be integrated with LN, your M3, as well as your CSD, which are three solutions. I don't think it has any integration with Sightline because Sightline is positioned for manufacturing centric verticals. This is not really positioned for manufacturing centric verticals unless they are doing a lot of warehouse distribution, which could be a possibility, but rare. So when you look at Infor WMS, it is integrated with, as I said, LN, M3, as well as CSD. And if you look at the verticals of Infor LN, M3, as well as CSD, LN is positioned for automotive, aerospace, high-tech electronics, etc., pure manufacturing.
Complex, multi-company, multi-country, etc., etc.
Yes. But I mean, that is not necessarily positioned for distribution. They have a distribution solution called CST, which used to be called SXC. It is also sold in the enterprises, but if you look at the position of that, it's also not positioned for retail centric verticals. It's positioned for the industrial distribution verticals, which are not going to have the volume of retail centric verticals. So again, very different industry. They typically don't need an OMS in general. Unless there is some sort of complexity in the business model that may require it. But for the most part, they probably don't require that. Now, M3 is a very interesting product. So M3 is positioned for, some of the retail verticals. Obviously, it's positioned for a lot of food and beverage retail centric verticals, apparel retail centric verticals, chemical retail, chemical distribution, all of those. So that's where WMS is going to be really handy. Yes, those verticals could have a lot of volume, but in general, the way the product is designed, it's designed for manufacturers who are also going to be retailers. It's not really designed for the pure play retailers as such in general. So that's where I guess the Infor does not have that OMS piece built as part of their product portfolio because of the industry alignment. Now, obviously they are going to have the whole supply chain suite, but when you compare this with some of the other solutions in the market, you are probably going to be comparing this with your Blue Yonders of the world, Manhattans of the world, your SAP, Oracle. They have your WMS, so the functionality is going to be comparable to them. So we are going to cover all of that in the slides, but from the briefing perspective, I don't know, Andy, do we cover anything else, or do you have any follow-up comments there?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to mention, it was going back to your comment about busy. When you're talking to ERP salespeople or companies that sell these products, the word integration is more of a euphemism.
Yep.
People, I mean, you described 3 or 4 different scenarios, but the fact is no two integration is alike.
Exactly.
And when anyone says it's going to be easy because of APIs, they are totally exaggerating.
Yes.
Every integration is its own little world, and never underestimate them.
Exactly. Could not agree more. Great commentary there. All right. So if you don't have any other comments, we'll start on the slides.
Sure.
Okay. So a couple of trends that you're going to see in the slides that we have for them is number one, Infor WMS, especially now, I guess Infor LN M3, they are getting a lot more international installations that I have not seen before, and I don't know if this is a new trend. I don't know if Infor is also targeting the international market a lot more. We have seen this in the case of, let's say, Aptian. They are winning a lot in Europe. I don't know. They are targeting Eastern Europe a lot. Infor is winning in a lot of international markets. I have not seen a single case study from the US or Canada, to be completely honest. So I don't know if they are not selling as many LN and M3 in the US, and that could drive your WMS deal, to be completely honest. But for the most part, they are attacking a lot more international customers, and that's the theme that you are going to see in the case studies that we are going to cover, the reviews that we are going to cover, the examples that we are going to cover today. So here, and I don't know how much the international localization matters in the case of WMS. Yes, we have seen some trends when we were looking at Descartes. For Descartes, the way they were doing EDI, e-invoicing, some of the integrations, the localization could matter in those cases. The reason for that is because you are going to have compliance reporting from the trade perspective that you need to file in these countries. So that's where the localization could be handy. My understanding was that the localization should not matter as much when it comes to WMS TMS. But now, after reviewing all of these solutions, it does seem like that there might be some functionality, and I don't know how much Infor WMS has that compliance related functionality when you go to different geography. So they are claiming that they support roughly 50 plus countries as well as the languages. So I don't know how much functionality they are going to have from the compliance reporting perspective, from especially the trade reporting, because some of the solutions that we have reviewed, they are more of the supply chain companies. Infor is a technology company. Infor is not a supply chain company. Sorry, the slide jumped for some reason. I don't know why. They're feeling like jumping
Because
today.
you hit your keyboard.
What's that?
Because you hit your keyboard.
I hit my keyboard. Exactly. So now I'm trying to do magic here, but it's not working
You're doing great.
as smoothly. Uh, okay. So in this particular case, again, I don't think this is going to be comparable with. I guess we have reviewed what Descartes is. Descartes is one, but I mean, overall, from the supply chain consulting perspective, C.H. Robinson is a supply chain consulting company that is not really the technology company. Uber Freight we reviewed, they are slightly more supply chain consulting company. Their business model is very different. So the kind of integrations that they are going to have is going to be very different. The kind of compliance reporting that they might be able to do is very different. I don't know if Infor WMS can do all of that, to be completely honest. Okay, so here they are saying they have roughly 1,200 global customers. This might be similar to what we saw in the case of Manhattan and Blue Yonder, but the average customer size for Manhattan is probably going to be bigger than Infor. That would be my understanding. Infor WMS, even though they target larger customers as well, but I don't think they have the enterprise customers like Manhattan.
No, I would agree.
Yeah. Here they are saying they have roughly 5,000 plus installations. In general, when you look at WMS, it's a very different ball game. It's not the same as ERP. So for WMS, I mean, it might be installed in many different warehouses. Typically, the decisions are made at the warehouse level. So you could have a lot more installations and a lot less customers, I guess. That's not the case with ERP. Not always. I mean, sometimes you could install ERP at the site level as well, but it happens a lot more in the case of WMS. So just because you are seeing a logo with, let's say, either Infor or any other ERP vendors, sometimes they might have installed just at the warehouse level, at the site level. They might not have them at the corporate level. So just keep that in mind. From the industry perspective, these guys are also doing 3PL, which is very interesting. And even though the solution is going to be integrated, in my mind, if you are selling in 3PL, my perception of that would be that you need to have that decoupled architecture that SAP was able to support, because your warehouse architecture is going to be very different from your ERP, and that's why you require that decoupled architecture. Now, when you look at Infor WMS, I don't know how you are going to treat this. This is definitely not embedded. The reason why it is not embedded is because it's not the same product. These two are different products. Infor has WMS, Infor has LNM3, and they are trying to bundle them together. That's how SAP is trying to sell. Now, when you look at Microsoft, Oracle, they are slightly different. They are trying to create that sort of embedded experience as part of ERP, which could be great, but which also could be a bottleneck. So if you look at the 3PL architecture for 3PL, if you have any flavors of 3PL, or if you're going to have any flavor of 3PL in your architecture, the embedded architecture is probably not going to work for you. So you require a decoupled architecture there. So that's why Infor is able to sell to 3PL just the way SAP is able to sell, just because they can support that architecture. So that's probably a distinction there in terms of comparison. So here, we have 3PL, we have distribution, we have healthcare. Healthcare is very interesting as well. I have not seen if this is integrated with S3 as well. Typically for healthcare, Infor likes to sell their S3 product. Typically LN, M3, they are not supported for healthcare. For healthcare, the comparable there is going to be probably Texas, the last one that we reviewed last week. They were positioned for healthcare, and healthcare is also very, 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 very distribution focused vertical. So maybe they are probably integrated with S3 as well. That's why they are targeting healthcare as one of the verticals. Food and beverage, that's where your M3 is going to be. Grocery is very interesting now. Sometimes WMS is sold separate, right? So it might not be sold with Infor ERP, and that's why they might be able to sell into grocery. I don't know if they like to sell Infor M3 in grocery. I don't know if they have any other products. Maybe they are able to sell the distribution enterprise or the SXC product. That could be a very interesting combination. But in my mind, grocery is a very different business in general. That has a lot of volume and a lot of different complexities. I don't know if the solutions that are really targeted for grocery, they are only the ones who succeed in grocery. High tech is LN. Manufacturing is very interesting as well. That's going to be manufacturing plus distribution. So that's probably going to be LN as well. Retail is a blanket term, I would say, but that's probably M3. Industrial equipment, fashion.
Yeah, whenever anyone talks about retail, you have to clarify whether it's high volume or low volume, because most systems can handle low volume retail, like counter sales. High volume, like going to Costco or something like that,
Yeah.
not a chance.
Exactly. That's where I would think of grocery, to be completely honest.
That's the same as me,
Yeah. They are positioning it there. I don't know.
Maybe they've got one. I'm not being disrespectful, because this is a common marketing ploy of every ERP company.
Yeah.
They'll have a whole list of things that they could, targets.
Yeah.
But maybe they've only got one customer in that target.
Exactly. Could not agree more. Yeah. So let's keep going here. So 1,200 plus installations, fairly comparable to Manhattan and Blue Yonder. Yeah. So we have already covered this point, so I don't think we need to cover that again. Now, I like this slide a lot, to be completely honest. This is coming directly from Infor, and the way they have segmented this. And obviously, when you are working with these large ERP vendors, I mean, their groups are fighting with each other always, right? ERP group is fighting with WMS group, and they have to sort of define their boundary in terms of how they are positioning WMS and ERP. So this is the story coming from the WMS people, to be completely honest. ERP people may have very different story, okay? But they have some rules here in terms of how they segment the boundaries. So overall, this is the group, and this is how industry would define. So I'm going to have to agree with Infor in general, okay? So here, some of the functionality that we saw when we reviewed any of the WMS TMS solution, some of the things such as your catch weight, UDF, I don't know how much of that you are going to find in Infor ERPs. So obviously, that's where they are saying that, that should reside in your WMS architecture. Now, sampling spot checking could be very interesting as well. That's more from the inspection perspective. So if WMS is going to be involved in that workflow, then probably that's going to reside inside your WMS, not inside your ERP. Multiple cross-dock methods, that's definitely WMS. Wave planning, multiple picking modes, that's very interesting as well. Load management, load sequence, dock management, all of that has to be part of your WMS. RF voice, desktop execution, that is all WMS. 3D visual warehouse is very unique. With Infor, I don't know if I have seen any other WMSs out there who have as pretty 3D visual overview of the warehouse. I will talk about my own concerns. With 3D warehouse, it looks pretty, but setting that up could be extremely challenging. So yeah, I mean, that requires a lot of effort. So don't buy just because you are seeing a 3D warehouse. We'll touch on that point. But right now, we have the visual warehouse, work viewer, travel audit. Labor planning is a big deal in general, productivity and monitoring, 3PL management and billing. Now, that becomes almost like an ERP for 3PL when you are going to be doing billing inside your WMS. So I don't know where you draw the boundary, but maybe they are, positioning this as the ERP for 3PL. Who knows? There is always a possibility.
What does you've got an XY graph here on the screen, the very top left-hand corner. What does that say? Your 3 words. Below the word Infor.
Just where are you looking?
Below Inforum, below Infor, right there at the top of the arrow.
Yeah, I think it says value. I don't know what that is.
Oh, you can't read either. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think something.
I was just wondering what they're measuring here.
Yeah, I think my understanding of this is that this is the graph for basically comparing the features. That's what they are trying to do.
Okay. WMS versus ERP.
Exactly, that's what they are trying to do.
Okay, gotcha.
The ERP is the bottom one, the green one. The WMS is the blue one.
Gotcha.
Okay, so if you look at the ERP functionality, they are saying RF support for basic, few operations, receiving, manual move, Soft reservations, I don't know what is soft reservations, to be completely honest. Allocation is always a debate when you talk about WMS versus ERP. Pick list, printing, completion, shipping in docs, manual cycle counting, production tracking, that is all. So Andy, I don't know whether you can see this or not. This is where the blue is Infor WMS, the green is ERP. Right?
Yeah, I can see that. Soft reservation basically means, I mean, it's soft versus hard. Hard means you cannot steal from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Soft says you can.
Right. But I mean,
Unallocate and move it over to somebody else, right?
Allocation is always a religious debate, to be completely honest. When you look at, the boundaries of WMS versus ERP, depending upon the architecture, they both are going to support some sort of allocation. In this particular case, they are saying soft allocation is inside ERP. You could implement hard allocation inside ERP as well, but the question is whether people are going to be happy with that or not. So it's always going to be your design, the way you are going to design things. So, but that's how they are drawing the boundaries. That's the Infor perspective. That's how they like to define. Because when you are going to get into the warehousing WMS community, they all like to control that allocation. They are going to say that, you know what, allocation resides inside WMS. But again, depending upon your architecture and design. Okay, so I don't have any other points here. Let's go to the next one. So this is again coming from Infor, and a lot of things that you're going to see here are going to be very similar to what we saw in the case of SAP. For example, kitting and value-added services functionality we saw in the case of SAP as well. Because again, when you are going to have that 3PL scenario, these guys are definitely trying to sell in 3PL. That's why your value-added services is going to be very interesting. Now, forward pick replenishment is kind of interesting. I don't think we have seen that before.
What do you think that means?
What's that?
What do you think that means?
Don't ask me that. I don't know. I've never seen that before. I've never seen that before.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just a different term that they're using for something.
Punishment.
Yeah, never seen that before.
Maybe it's to do with forecasting, but then if you're forecasting and if it's not a firm order, why would you care? Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I can guess, Andy. I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, I don't like to guess. Yeah, I just don't have any insight.
That's okay.
Yeah. Value-added services we have already covered. Dynamic slotting is a very advanced functionality. And these guys have that as well, which is very interesting. Obviously, dynamic slotting we saw in the case of SAP as well. And we have already covered the integration. Integration you are going to see in Infor OS is what they are using for that as the layer. But overall, when you look at the capabilities, I guess that's going to be very, 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 very similar to SAP in my mind. They have pretty much everything that SAP WM can do. I don't know if it can handle the same volume that SAP can do, but overall, from the capabilities perspective, it looks very similar when I compare. Yeah. Now, this is the visual view of the warehouse. I don't think I have seen any systems that were as visual as this, except Manhattan probably.
Yeah.
But Manhattan, if I recall correctly, for Manhattan, they were doing a lot of merchandising planning, store level planning, warehouse CS, but they were doing a lot more merchandising planning, if I remember correctly. They have that 3D view as well. Here, this is a very different perspective. I don't think Infor likes to get into merchandising planning scenarios. So that's where the boundary is overall from the retail perspective, even though in the marketing material, they are claiming that they can do retail, but that's where the boundary is in my mind. That's where you are going to have real distinction between the Blue Yonders of the world, the Manhattan of the world versus Infor WMS. This is designed more for slightly more industrial warehouse-centric companies where you are going to have real warehouse play. In fact, I don't think SAP likes to play in the retail space either. So that's why I am comparing this with more SAP. You are going to see a lot more Oracle inside retail. You are going to see a lot more Manhattan, Blue Yonder in retail, not as much SAP, unless they are being used only as GL. EWM is used in the distribution space, but again, they don't get into that merchandising planning sort of spaces. The point that I really wanted to mention overall from the warehouse perspective, again, this looks really pretty, okay? And everybody's going to say that, you know what, I'm going to buy the system because it looks really pretty. I'm going to find everything inside my warehouse. But you have no idea how difficult this is to set up, okay? My customers struggle in finding out lead times, setting up unit of measure for a SKU. Now, here we are talking about measuring every single inch inside your warehouse,
Mm-hmm.
modeling that, setting that inside your ERP. So again, don't go by what looks good during the demo, uh, because
I
you
was
have
going to
no.
say this graphic we're looking at is very impressive, but I'll guarantee you it was designed for the demo.
Exactly. This is a very demoable feature, and that's why these companies would invest into this. But for the most part, you as a buyer, you don't want to care for this. But again, this will probably increase the cost of your implementation. I don't know by how much, because this gets really difficult in setting up. Unless you are already using some sort of, warehouse system, you already have the XYZ mapped out for your warehouse. That's a different story. There are different customers and they have different level of maturity.
Right.
But average SMB, they just don't have that. So make sure you guys keep that in mind. But overall, from the capabilities perspective, this is a lot. It has the license plate number, it has all the advanced features that you would probably want in a decent sized WMS. Now, 3PL billing is very interesting, an activity based solution with customer level costing, and this is the term that I have seen only in the case of SAP, to be completely honest, as well as Pro for some reason. Okay, I don't know why, but they both seem to be using that. I don't know how many companies really use activity based costing. I think that would be relevant, slightly more distribution spaces, I guess. But again, I have not seen that being used unless you are going to be very large enterprise. Some people have tried to implement that. But I don't know how much value they get from it, to be completely honest. But maybe in 3PL, that's slightly more used. So this is the first time I'm hearing this in the case of Infor, which is impressive. But again, I don't know how many companies really use that. So this is going to be multi-warehouse, multi-owner operations is very interesting as well, because in 3PL space, you are going to have many different layers. You are going to have owner operators from the warehouse perspective as well as from the logistics perspective. So things get very interesting because sometimes they are owning just the warehouse. Sometimes you are sort of keeping the goods in somebody else's warehouse. So it could be all over the place overall from the ownership perspective. And that drives the complexity, of the 3PL operations. That's why 3PL space in general is very unique. And if you are going to have 3PL as part of your business model, most distributors, okay, they have some flavor of 3PL in their business model. So if you are going to be a distributor who has 3PL, it's very interesting. And if you are manufacturer plus distributor plus 3PL, good luck with that. Good luck with that. um,
You're talking about a very complicated scenario.
yeah, and we have seen some businesses becoming really complicated, to be honest, when they are running manually because they can do whatever they want in their power. When you are trying to model that in a system, it becomes very expensive. Um, Here, they are talking about compliance labeling and special packs. Okay, so one more concept that I have no clue, and I don't know, Andy, if you have heard of this anytime in the warehouse context. Okay, so this is Rainbow. So now they have mentioned Rainbow. I don't know if it is more of a marketing mistake. That's always a possibility.
Maybe if you use the software, there'll be a pot of gold.
Exactly, right? Exactly. But when you are reading the marketing materials from software vendors, because the marketers don't really have as much implementation knowledge in general. Okay, so you need to be slightly careful when you read this. They may have mentioned something just because they may have read somewhere. They might not understand what that is. So Rainbow and multi-pallet operations. Multi-pallet is anybody can understand that, I guess, but Rainbow, Andy, have you heard that before? No?
No.
Okay, so I asked my friend ChatGPT this time. Okay, if ChatGPT knew about the Rainbow operations, so this is what ChatGPT said. So as of my last update in September 2021, Andy, okay, there was no widely recognized or established concept called the Rainbow concept, specifically in the context of warehousing. Okay, I cannot provide a specific definition for the Rainbow concept in warehousing. So even ChatGPT does not know about it. So I don't know what that is, to be completely honest. I personally have not heard of it. So yeah, I don't know what that is. That might be very specific to Infor. Okay, so some more commentary here. This is coming from 2023. I guess this is a case study, and one of the points that I really wanted to highlight in this is Latin American case study. So again, the case studies that you're going to see, they are going to be very global for some reason. Most of the case studies reviews that we have seen, they are either from Europe, Latin America. They are not from US or Canada. So I don't know what's going on there. Here, this particular company has selected Infor WMS to increase productivity in its distribution center. And they are saying more than 50 years ago to import and distribute automotive and industrial parts based on industrial maintenance products and the other on the automotive sector. So one thing is clear that they are using this in the automotive aftermarket sort of sector. And that has different layers. It's not really distribution, but it's not also manufacturing. It has its own sort of nuances. Now, overall, in terms of complexity, they are saying direct sales points with more than 10,000 customers and B2B channel for 3,500 customers. That's slightly on a lower side if I look at the volume, the transaction volume. Now, they have had constant growth now with 30,000 stock keeping units for a distributor. In my mind, that's on a lower side. Having space problems in its distribution center, it implemented a voice picking system, but it needed a central software to manage logistical operations that would integrate with the other existing enterprise solution. So overall, if I look at the theme of this particular case study, it's a very mid-market centric company. That's how I am perceiving this overall from the transaction volume perspective. So you always need to look at, okay, how many SKUs are we talking about? Because that typically drives your DRP planning, that drives a lot of things, right? If I remember, Manhattan could not handle the volume for one of the retailers because they had just way too many SKUs in the warehouse combinations overall from the merchandising planning perspective. Here we are barely talking about like 30,000 SKUs, which is very, very, very low. Now, this is coming from UAE, again, not US. So very global exposure in general. They are talking about Medi International will integrate Infor WMS into its existing enterprise resource planning platform. Here, some of the volumetric analysis that they have has implemented Infor WMS in its 20,000 square meter warehouse. 20,000 square meter warehouse is going to be what? Maybe
60,000?
60,000 or 200,000?
Or is it
square feet?
squared? 400,000?
200,000.
200,000.
Nine. Yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is, again, very mid-market in my mind. That's not a lot, right? And here they are saying the WMS is currently managing a stock unit of what, 0.5 million, which is like what, 500K? And
Yeah, you're right. It's about 10 to 1.
right? Yeah, that would be my guess. Yeah. So complexity of 25K SKUs, which is very low. Receiving just under 10,000 order lines. Can you believe this? Okay. Shipping around 27,000 order lines, which is very, very, very low. This is not the same volume that retailers would see.
No.
Yeah. So again,
a wholesaler.
Yeah. So you need to look at the volume, what they have handled in the past. And based on that, you need to decide, okay, which companies are going to be right fit for this kind of solution. Now, here, this is coming from Colombia in South America. Again, international customer. Okay, obviously they have a lot of different installations in the automotive space, as you may have noticed in these three case studies. And that is primarily because of LN. So wherever they are selling LN, obviously the WMS is probably going to be part of it, especially if it is going to have some sort of distribution flavor. It also goes with M3. So again, all of the verticals where LN and M3 are going to be present, that's where your WMS is probably going to be present as well. So this is a leading company in the automotive sector was looking for a software solution to increase efficiency, guarantee quality of services, optimize resources, process information in real time, a customer network that demands services and spare parts. 30,000 units, which is very low again, are delivered daily, spare parts, batteries, oil products through its logistics services. So again, the customers that, they are very mid-market centric, companies, a lot of them, if you look at their volume. This is one more. This is very interesting. Okay, so this is coming from 2023. This is coming from a jewelry brand, Fashion Forward, and this must be M3, has made a strategic move in its global operations by implementing Infor WMS at a new facility in Poland. So again, very Europe centric installation. So as you can see, a lot of different global installations. New warehouse in Poland is the first of Lavisa's multiple facilities worldwide to operate on Infor WMS. Lavisa has had outsourced its operations to third-party logistics in some countries or relied, so that a lot of companies do initially they are going to outsource, but then they have to bring that business back internally, and then they probably need slightly more sophisticated WMS. So this is a very interesting case study as well. They are doing okay in the jewelry brand, in my mind, that, and again, jewelry is not going to have as much volume, right? Because these are expensive products. They are not going to have the $10 sales orders. So this might be okay, even though it is a very retail consumer-centric product. But again, I think the transaction volume is where the play is. So my perception of Infor WMS is going to be when you don't have as much transaction volume and you are going to have slightly thicker order in general, then Infor WMS is going to be fit, mostly for the verticals where LN and M3 is going to play. That would be my perception so far. Now, this is coming from another case study, which is the French manufacturer of pure cotton. Wiping papers, paper Infor does okay. I would say this is going to be 24,000 liters of soap and 100,000 liters of some sort of gel, 40,000 tons of paper wipes per year. Again, I don't know if that is a lot of volume, to be completely honest. And here they are talking about batch management has been refined thanks to the automatic integration of use by dates and mandatory product specification. They have term such as serial, shipping, container, code. And I asked my friend ChatGPT again if they knew anything about that, and it could not find anything related to this. So I don't know what is SSCC and if that is a very Infor specific term that they are using, but there is no documentation as such that I personally could find. But that seems to be an international standard for identifying parcels and pallets. So my understanding of that is going to be that's going to be the generalized number that is used on the containers, but I don't know if SSCC term is being used, at least in the industry. Has been implemented for better management of goods flows and automation of logistics operations. Yeah, but I mean, we have seen the European article number. I guess that's what ChatGPT is trying to recommend. So that is something that we have seen. At least I believe in the case of Descartes, if I remember correctly, they were using that. SSCC, no, I've not seen that. This is coming from the integration and stuff. I think this is also one of the case studies where we got this from. So in this particular case, they had multiple systems. They had LN, they had MES, they had LIMS, they had some of the OEM systems providing real-time integration and featuring monitoring screens to identify any integration issues. Then they are talking about the full production module enables messages to be sent to LGVs, and typically these guided vehicles that you are going to have, that's where your WMS play is going to be. And it seems Infor does have integration with those wherever you are going to have some sort of hardware play, and that is the ideal spot for WMS in general. So LGVs to feed lines and notify the highway, warehouse, and about finished good pallets, and a customized yard management solution manages dock assignment and access to the facility. We can receive raw materials using supplier multi-field barcodes, trigger replenishment to production based on live consumption, and load pallets onto trucks without a single paper printed. That's very interesting commentaries right there. But again, this is international installation as well. This is not from the US, as far as my understanding goes.
It seems like they're all outside of the US.
Yes, most of them. Yeah. Now you have this is the screen coming from WMS, and here you have some of the things such as your classic allocation strategy, put away strategy. So this is where I guess a lot of things can be done inside ERP as well. But I mean, when your WMS people are going to be involved, when warehouse consultants are going to be involved, they like to keep allocation inside the WMS system. Now, how you want to structure your inventory, whether it is going to work, and if you're simply sending GL to your ERP, that's not a very active architecture. If you are simply retailer, distributor, this might work. There's no problem at all. But if you're doing a little bit of MRP, have a little bit of manufacturing, you could have issues in your architecture. So again, that's going to be always very interesting debate. Where do you keep your allocation, and whether allocation that you are keeping inside ERP, whether that is going to be aligned with your warehouse or WMS system or not. Again, that is more of the architectural issues. But overall, both of these systems might support this. So you need to decide how you are going to manage the allocation. And typically, you are always going to have issues with allocation in general, unless you figure out the architecture. So some reviews here. So we have, this is coming from 2022. This is coming from Logistics and Supply Chain, which is 3PL. 51 to 1,000 employee, which is very mid-market in general. They are claiming that I feel it's one of the best WMS system which we have in the market. The reason, it's very user-friendly and easy to configure and easy to customize. Easy to customize in general, that's the sentiment that you are going to get from most Infor users in general. The question is whether you really want to customize is where my take would be. When you are going to customize, you are probably going to be owning a lot of problems. So just be mindful of that. They are complaining about there was a labor module in the WMS and which is now removed. One more review. This is coming from 11 months ago, I guess. This one is, they are saying the price is relatively high compared to other WMS software. My experience with Infor WMS software has been incredibly positive. Okay. So for the most part, the way I look at it is, obviously this is not designed for very small companies. It's also not designed for very large companies. It's sort of in the middle, I guess. So obviously the pricing is going to be very similar to your SAP likes. It's not going to be as expensive as SAP, but it's not going to be as affordable as some of the smaller WMS systems that you are going to find in the market. But again, if you are getting this, then you must be getting this for the advanced functionality that it can support. And again, if you don't have that process maturity inside your warehouse where you cannot really utilize the functionality, then what's the point of getting Infor WMS? We have some more commentary here. This is also coming from reviews. So here they are saying Visual Warehouse gives 3D visualization, easy ERP integration. It is an absolute wave management system to accession processing efficiency, as well as the platform which helps curtail our accomplishment cost, increase potency, and improve certainty across. I have no idea what he or she is talking about there.
Maybe it's carrying costs.
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. It's very interesting comment though. Never seen that before.
It's in, again, marketing is wonderful where it says easy ERP integration.
Yeah. And sometimes that's on the user as well. I don't know who's writing this, to be completely honest.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that could be the user. Yeah.
Yeah. But I have never seen that in the context of either warehouse or ERP. So I don't know. By the way, if you look at the comments in the bottom, they are saying the accomplice doing the task. And I don't know if this is more of the geography or cultural thing that they use some different terms. I don't know, Andy. Your command of language is far superior than mine. I don't know if you have heard that anywhere in any country should have clear distinctness to what work is necessary to be pulled, even though it is easily operated with it being web based. It implies that it should be, yeah, I don't know.
The accomplice doing the task.
Yeah, that could be a very global language, I guess. I don't know. I've never. Okay. So here, this is coming from 2022. Here they are saying this product works awesome and provides various functionalities in one portal. It also prioritizes tasks as per the need, which minimizes overall cost. So voice feature is talked a lot in general in the reviews, and they are really good at that. By the way, this is manufacturing. They are R&D, $50 to $200 million USD revenue. Slightly on a lower side in my mind, at least for this product, to be completely honest. They must be closer to $250 million. That would be the sweet spot in my mind. Here they have been using this on premises. They went live in 2021. Voice feature functionality given in the tool, which makes it different and more advanced than its peers. Nothing substantial as such in this review. Either the only thing you are able to see here is that it is also being used by manufacturer, which is very interesting. All right, so that's it. I don't know, Andy, if you're going to have any sort of comments.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a great WMS system. Whether or not it's competing with the SAPs of the world, I don't think so. But for the mid-market, I think it's a very, very good product.
Yeah, I guess as long as you don't have the volume, and that's the trend that I am personally seeing, as long as you are not looking at very high volume, then this might be okay. So you need to look at the number of SKUs that you have. You really need to do volumetric analysis, is how I like to bucket it. Number of SKUs plus warehouse combination, plus how your orders are structured, how many different order lines you have. That all will dictate, what is going to work for you.
Yeah, and you probably got to do some timestamp studies too, because you got to be able to justify the investment as well.
Do you want to?
How long does it take to do it manually versus how fast you can do it with this tool?
Exactly. I mean, look, from the WMS perspective, even if you are going to get just the barcoding, that itself is a great value add in general. Okay, you are absolutely going to be faster. In fact, I mean, when companies buy ERP, they generally buy for WMS, to be completely honest. Right. Barcoding is one of the even for manufacturers, I guess barcoding is going to be one of the areas where you are going to find most efficiencies. You can show instant savings by implementing warehouse. Pure play ERP, I don't know how much you can justify, to be completely honest, but barcoding you definitely can justify, even for manufacturing.
Yeah.
So that is always the immediate value add. But after that, you can do a lot with WMS. Again, if you're buying something like this, then make sure, number one, your processes are going to be in order. Your warehouse needs to be organized. You are doing crazy scenarios from the WMS perspective, then only it's going to make sense. Otherwise, it's just wastage of money, I guess. Any other comments, Andy?
No, thank you very much, Sam.
Of course. So guys, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution or the vendor. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Andy Pradico, head over to essoft.com. It's essoft.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.